Ugh, you guys have no idea how much work goes into one of these videos. It's been far too long since we've done an episode of The Plug, but there's some really interesting stuff happening in keyboards right now. There's a lot of boards coming out. Some of them are gonna be great stock right out of the box. Others need a little help to be the best they can be, especially if you've bought into a drop board. So today, we're gonna check out a switch puller that can avoid scratching your plates on your hot swap boards. We'll also check out some custom cut acoustic foams from StupidFish. We'll look at some replacement and upgrade options for your plate mount stabilizers. And we'll check out the new box cream switches from Novelkeys. You ready? Let's go! We're gonna open it up with a switch puller that will give you sticker shock at $29.95, but this is an absolute game changer if you find yourself swapping out the switches in your hot swap boards a lot. I picked this up from Prevail Keyco and it changed my life. I don't know if Gateron made this or simply rebranded an OEM puller, but it's an aluminum body that's about 4.5 inches or about 114 millimeters long with a switch and a keycap up top. You simply push straight down, pull up, and eject the switch by pressing the cap. This solved a lot of problems for me because not only is it a lot faster than a traditional switch puller, but it's a lot easier on the hand because you use it like this. And it doesn't mar or scratch your plate. You can go from this, where switches have been swapped out like 5 times, to this, where switches have been pulled and replaced 3 full times and there's not a scratch on this thing. This is especially nice if you've purchased an expensive add-on plate that you don't want to get scratched up. It's also awesome for getting in those tight areas right up next to the case where traditional pullers may have a hard time. For most MX switches out there, it's an absolute unit. Sometimes they do get stuck ejecting, but I've never had to wrestle one out of a board. There is a bit of technique involved here, so if you find yourself struggling with certain switches, especially like box switches, it's important that when you pull up, you also kind of push into the direction of the flatter part of the switch. Otherwise, you might risk damaging that area on the switch. There's really not much else to say. If you're a hot swap enthusiast, this thing is a must-have, especially for somebody like me who is constantly pulling switches for review videos. Next up, we're checking out some laser cut foams from StupidFish. I originally bought these for the Drop Alt High Profile and the NK65 entry before I reached out to them. It's no secret that the NK65 is one of my favorite boards out there, regardless of price point. Part of that comes from that really big slab of silicone dampener that they placed in the bottom of the case. StupidFish decided that wasn't quite enough to get it done and did a custom cut foam that fits sandwiched in between the plate and the PCB. This gives you 2 different types of sound dampening inside the same board, and it made a board I already really enjoy sound that much better. So you can obviously hear the difference that foam makes in there. For the Drop Alt, it comes in 3 pieces. So you get 2 for the top section and then 1 that fits in the lower section right in between the diffuser as well. It's really nice. For me, on both of these boards, it completely does away with ping and a lot of the obnoxious high-pitched frequencies you hear, but especially on that NK65, it preserves some of that low-end sound that I like about that board. The spacebar especially sounds phenomenal to me. He also does laser cut spacebar foams as well. I picked some up to fit the GMK. Look how clean this is. The only thing to be aware of with these is they are not compatible with plate mount stabs without a little modding. I can't stress that enough. But if your board is using PCB mount stabs, these are super clean. After I made contact with him, he also designed some foams for the Drop Carina, a board that can really use some help in the sound department. This, like almost all his foams, have an insert for the bottom case portion as well as the plate. He did this in such a way that it really doesn't impact the underglow much at all. Man, the stock unlubed drop pandas have a ton of ping to them, as you could hear. I did leave those in there on purpose because I wanted to see how much difference we could make to the Carina. And I will say the foams make a big difference, but there is just no stopping the ping on that board with that configuration. There's also another issue at work here with the Carina. It has 4 screws to hold the plate down where it should really be designed to have 5. It's missing a clutch one in the lower left corner. You add the foam in there, and with nothing to help compress that corner, it throws the whole angle of that edge off. The Carina, sadly, is a board that I really just can't recommend unless what you want is not in stock and you just have to get your hands on a board right now. Even with all the aftermarket options out there to save it, you're still only going to be able to make it so good. And obviously you can't fault StupidFish for that. It's definitely down to the design of the board. I love the impact that the foams had on both the Alt HP and the NK65. Unfortunately, the foams are still not enough to save the acoustics on the Carina. Okay, let's talk stabs, because drop boards are notorious for poor stabilizers. I know you heard that rattle in the Carina test. Until very recently, I thought Cherry OEM was the only way to go if you were looking to upgrade or replace your plate mount stabs, but a lot of you pointed out in the Carina review that Durock is now doing plate mount replacements, so again, I headed over to Prevail to grab some. And then Novelkeys also dropped new stabs on the same day, so I grabbed some of those as well. The ones that come stock on the NK65 boards I have aren't bad at all, really, and they come lubed properly, but this new design will be included on the NK65 milkshakes and all future NK65 boards going forward that use plate mount stabs. The packaging on the NK stabs is definitely premium, but it feels pretty unnecessary and wasteful. The housing between them and the Durocks are really similar, but the stems themselves are designed different. You'll still need to clip the stems on the Durocks. That's not the case with the NK. The color on those is black housing, transparent stems. The Durocks come in either all black or all white, and probably some different colors as well, but this is what Prevail stocks. In both cases, I did lube the housing and the stem with 205 grade 0 and the wires with the Space Cables XHT BDZ. So both really good ways to go, and both are a significant upgrade from the stock stabilizers on the drop board, but if you made me pick one, I'd go with the NK. The sound you get with the Carina is really inconsistent depending on key location. Like the backspace sounds good and the enter key sounds meh, but the space bar never lies, and I think the NKs edge out the Durocks. I have to take a minute to point out something that came in a long time ago and I completely forgot to cover it. These are stab pads from Upgrade Keyboards. Available in both 0.5 and 0.2 millimeters. These are legit rubberized pads that you can use in place of Band-Aid mods. They're super easy to peel and stick, and I mean worlds easier, far less messy, and much more aesthetic than Band-Aid modding. I'm keeping these around all the time now for all of my builds. Lastly, something that's been coming up a lot more in keyboard conversation lately is north versus south facing switches and the impact they may have on interference between certain switches and cherry profile keycaps like GMK. So I was really happy to see Novelkeys offering Kailh box creams. The design of the top housing completely negates any chance of interference, whether they're used in north or south facing boards. These have a 4mm total travel with actuation at 2mm, 45 gram weight with a 55 gram bottom out. That's versus the 55 operating and a 70 gram bottom out on the standard creams. Unlike most box switches I've seen, these do come in a 5-pin design, so clipping is still a must if you're going to be putting those in existing drop, alt, and control boards. But I'm happy to report that the official word from Drop is that future iterations of the alt and the control will both have 5-pin support like we saw in the Carina. The box creams also come with a bit of light factory lube, which seems to be all focused in the lower housing where the spring makes contact. They have a really light feel, and stock in terms of smoothness, I would place them right in the middle of like a stock standard cream and a lubed standard cream. To lube these further, you'd hit the rails on the top housings, but these are out of the box, really smooth, really nice. I like the sound. I don't think there's any kind of break-in period necessary here, and I personally wouldn't feel the need to lube these if I were putting them in a personal build. So my take on the box creams, they're like creams light. Lighter touch, of course, which is very obvious in typing. You can tell in my tests I have a tendency to bottom out, and with the standard creams, I still strike them like I have something to prove, where I can go a little easier on the box creams. Like I said, they're also smoother out of the box, and I feel like the ownership is less fussy than with the standard cream. Creams are a great switch, don't get me wrong, but the stock performance is not my favorite. You really have to break them in and then lube them to really get the best performance out of them, so if that sounds like more than you're willing to do for your keyboard switches, box creams are probably a better option for you. Also worth noting too that GMK sets don't fit the box switches as tight as they do the standard creams. So there you go. If you have a board you like, especially an entry-level board that you feel could use a little help in the sound and feel department, there are some easy ways to tighten up both of those areas. If you happen to have already invested in a drop board, you can utilize all of those things together to really elevate that experience. Custom cut foams, more precision aftermarket plate mount stabs, and switches that defy the laws of interference will definitely all help make for a much better typing experience overall. As always, affiliate links for everything we talked about down in the description. Any questions, hit me in the comments. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.